Hi, in today's video I'm going to be covering how to play DRM encrypted audio and video on FreeBSD. If we have a look at this post on the FreeBSD forum, it mentions that Chromium has recently been patched to enable widevine support. And this is done with the foreign-cdm package and the linux-widevine-cdm port. What I'm going to do is show you how this works and how to get it set up. And this will allow you to watch things like Netflix, listen to Spotify, watch Channel 4, ITV, and other sort of streams that use encrypted video and audio. So what I'm going to do is switch across to FreeBSD and show you this in action, playing in Chromium. Nope, wrong button. There we go. So what we've got here is Chrome open on FreeBSD with Chrome flags, and you'll see CDM storage database and CDM storage database migration at the bottom of the page. And this shows that Widevine has been enabled in Chromium. I'm going to switch across to channel 4 here. And I'm going to open a video up. So this is the beginning of Plane, Trains and Automobiles. And channel 4 uses DRM encrypted video. It's Widevine. You can see this is playing and it's going to kick in a second. Okay, so that was Planes, Trains and Automobiles, and what I'm going to do now is switch across to ITV. And here we got I'm a Celebrity. And again, ITV uses DRM encrypted video.
You're watching on demand. Please check the closing time before trying to vote or enter any competition or other interactivity in this program, as it may not count and you may still be charged.
Since I agreed to go to the jungle.
Okay, so we can see there that's working. That's Chromium on FreeBSD playing DRM encrypted video on Channel 4 and ITV in the UK. And I've recorded that video on a MacBook Air 2011 11-inch with 4 GB of RAM. So I set this up on that machine, so even if you have a really low powered machine you can still get this set up. What I'm going to do is actually take you through the steps of installing Chromium with the foreign-cdm package and installing widevine-cdm. So what I'm going to do is switch across to Emacs here and actually go through the steps that you need to do, and I'll link to this document under the video. So we just put that a bit closer. So, right, first step is you need to install Chromium. So sudo pkg install Chromium, and what we're going to do is enable quite a few things to actually get this working. We need to enable Linux, and we're also going to use poudriere to build the Widevine port as a package which we can then install. So the first step, install Chromium. Next step, we want to enable Linux support. So the way you do this is using the sysrc command or manually editing the rc.conf. So sudo sysrc linux_enabled equals double quotes yes and double quotes, and then you can start the service with sudo service linux start. And what we're going to need to do is actually set some options in our fs tab for Linux, and when you actually enable some set some of this stuff up, it's going to print out some messages in the terminal recommending you do certain things in the FS tab, and one of them I found didn't actually work and stopped everything sort of booting up properly, basically. So I'll show you the correct things you need to set up. So first step, enable Linux. Next step, what we're going to do is actually enable null-fs and temp-fs. So what we're going to do is use root for a lot of these options. So make sure you switch to root using su or sudo su or doas su. And what we're going to do is enable temp-fs and null-fs in bootloader. So that's boot/loader.conf, and then we're going to use KLD to load them. So we can actually use the sysrc file, sysrc command to edit the bootloader config file. So you can either manually edit bootloader.config and then add these options in null-fs load, temp-fs load, or you can do it this way, as root sysrc-f and the path to bootloader.conf, and then null-fs_load equals yes. You can then load that, and again it says as root kld load-n null-fs, and then we're going to add the temp-fs load option as well with sysrc-f bootloader.conf temp-fs_load equals yes, and then load that up with kld load-n temp-fs. Okay, so when you actually set some of this stuff up, you're going to get a message like this saying some programs need lin-procfs mounted on compact Linux proc. You'll get 3 commands output when you set up Linux as a service, and the last one I think was for SHM and using temp-fs, and that basically threw an error. So what you need to do is edit your etc fs tab, and these are 2 options you need to add. Sorry. lin-procfs at /compacts linux proc, and that's lin-procfs read write 00. You can then mount that again running this command as root sudo mount compact linux proc, and then the next one we're going to enable is lin-sysfs, and this is the option we're going to do, compact linux sys linux sysfs read write 00. You can then mount that with sudo mount compact linux sys. So some of these steps might not be necessary, but it's just stuff that was output. I've got everything working, so there may be some steps that can be omitted. So the next thing we need to do is actually install foreign-cdm, and we can do that with sudo pkg install foreign-cdm, and this is the kind of proxy. Chromium's been patched, and what it does is use this foreign-cdm as a proxy to widevine, which is sort of running under Linux. So that's the next step, and now the next thing we're going to do is actually set up poudriere as a build environment, so that we can build the port and create a package that we can then install with pkg. So we're going to do this because there's 2 ways you can really install packages. Yeah, you've got packages and ports on FreeBSD, and you really shouldn't mix them. So you can either install everything from port that compiles everything and takes a long time, or you can use PKGs. They have things like Firefox and big programs already built. So what we're basically doing is creating our own repository where we can build different packages with different options, and then we can install them with PKG. So what we're going to do now is set up poudriere. Again, we need to do a lot of this stuff as root. So switch to root using either sudo or doas, or just su. So sudo su or doas su. That's the first step. What we need to do next is create a SSL certificate and key. Because when we build packages with Poudriere, we want to be able to sign them with a private key. This will ensure a lot of machines that the packages are legitimate, and they're not malicious in any way. So what we're going to do is actually create a directory structure for the keys and the certificates. And the reason I'm doing it this way is because I've gone through all the steps and got it working as I've shown you. So I'm going through all the steps you need to do to get this set up. And again, I'll link to this document so you can actually go through this, and also just copy my config files for root, for my root system, and also my dot files. So what we need to do is create these directories again, and this must be done as root. So this step here, what we do is we use mkdir with the -p option, which basically creates the directory structure if it doesn't exist. We'll do mkdir -p user local etc SSL keys, and then user local etc SSL certs. And another thing to note is if you're you can create directories with a brace sort of structure, but if you switch to root using su, for example, you'll be using binsh, which doesn't support that format. So that's why I'm showing you here how to create the directories individually in case you're using binsh as opposed to zsh or bash. So we created those directories. Then what we need to do is run change mod 600 on user local etc SSL keys. And let's have a look down here. What's the next step? What we then do is we create a 496-bit key called poudriere.key and place it in our keys directory. And we do this using OpenSSL gen rsa-out, and then the path to the key file and the size of it. So we've got user local etc SSL keys poudriere.key 4096. Now after we've generated that key, we can create a public certificate from it by typing the following: OpenSSL rsa-in user local etc SSL keys poudriere.key -pubout-out user local etc SSL certs poudriere.cert. So then we'll have the SSL components we need to sign and verify the packages. So let me just scroll this up a bit and hide that section and move on to the next one. So once we've done that, we're going to actually, once we've done the setup to create the directory structure for some of Poudriere's requirements, we're going to install Poudriere. And again, you want to do this as root, so either switch to root or run sudo pkg install Poudriere. That's POUDRIERE. So we're going to create some more directories that are needed for this. So we're going to create the dist files directory, and we do that as root. So make sure you root mkdir-p user port dist files, and then what we need to do is edit the poudriere.conf file. And what I'll do is I'll go through, after I've gone through all the steps here, what I'll do is actually show you my config for all the different bits that are needed. So hopefully it should make more sense when you see the actual directory structure of all these config files. So what we need to do is edit the poudriere.conf file, and that is at user local etc poudriere.conf. So use your favorite text editor and edit the file as root. And what we're going to do is change some options down here in the Poudriere and poudriere.conf file so that it looks like this. So this is the default file on FreeBSD 14. So I'm using ZFS. So the first thing we have set here is the Z pool, which will be equal to Z root, and that's the default name for the for the pool on FreeBSD. Okay, so what it's going to do is it's actually going to create a another sort of pool called poudriere. So this is zroot fs equals poudriere. Now the other thing I'm going to mention here, which is quite important, is the FreeBSD host, and this is where poudriere is going to pull stuff from FreeBSD. Now you'll see in a lot of videos they set the host to FTP, the FTP server for FreeBSD, and I would recommend using this instead, https download.freebsd.org. The reason for that is if you're using something like pfSense, that is going to give you problems with FTP connections. You have to install a plugin to get FTP working. It's like passive FTP, but have ports open, all this kind of stuff, and that was causing me a lot of problems. I couldn't actually get poudriere to work with the FTP protocol. Here you can see here, this is the default FreeBSD host, ftp://ftp.freebsd.org. So I would recommend not using that and using this instead, because the FTP protocol may cause problems with your firewall. Basically, you may have a lot of issues. That's something really important, because otherwise you might get stuck at this step. So this is one step I got stuck at for a while. So the next thing we've got here is default here. You don't need to change this. Resolve.conf. This is the resolve.conf file on your system that controls the DNS, basically, so it can resolve the domain names to download FreeBSD. And then we have the basefs, which is user local poudriere, and this is where it's going to store the jails and the ports. Portlint, tempfs. I've got tempfs enabled. That's another thing, you actually need temp if you're going to set this up. You need tempfs enabled as well. So this was another thing that I got stuck on for a bit, because I didn't have tempfs enabled. So that's what you need to have set up there. We also have the dist files cache, which is user ports dist files. I'm just going to go through the options in this section. I think that's pretty much it. Check change options verbose. These are sort of default options. Check change dependencies, yes. Then we got the path to the repo signing key here. So this, I think you may have to put this in, or it may be the default, I can't remember. So that's the PKG repo signing key, which is user local etc SSL keys poudriere.key. Okay, I think that may be the lot. Scroll through this. Okay, so the next step we're going to do is creating the build environment. Again, this is all as root, so make sure you switch to root using su or sudo su or doas su. What we're going to do is we're going to create a jail for FreeBSD 14, the current release. So we do that with poudriere jail-c-j, and this is the name that we're going to give it, FreeBSD_14-0x64, and this is how we can increment it to like FreeBSD 14 point, P1, P2, that sort of thing, and then the -v option 14.0-release. So this is going to take a while to complete. It didn't for me. It only took a few minutes get that set up, even on a old 2011 MacBook Air with 4 GB of RAM. So once that's finished, you can type poudriere jail-l, and that's going to list the jails. So let's go through the next step here. So what we're going to actually do is install ports. So we run poudriere port-c-p head, and that's going to pull down the head. And once that's done, that took only a couple of minutes, but that's going to probably depend on your internet speed and your computer. So it's going to fetch the ports tree, and then what we can do is run poudriere port-l, and that will list the ports. So now this is a important step that really had me stumped for a while. So what we're doing is we're using the Widevine port, which sort of runs under Linux. And what happened was I kept running poudriere to build the port, and it kept saying ignored. So I had to look at the log file, and it was basically complaining about the license. So because it's a sort of proprietary thing, Widevine, DRM, it's got a license. So what you have to do is echo disable licenses equals yes into user local etc poudriere.d make.conf. And what that's going to do is when you use poudriere to build the package, it's going to use that make file and use that option in that make file to sort of disable accepting the license. It will automatically accept the license. So this is a really important step. If you don't do this, what will happen is you will use poudriere to try and build this package from the ports, and it will just say ignored, as I said. So that's an important step you need to do. Okay, so next step is creating a port building list and setting the port option. So what this is basically a text file where we specify the names of the ports that we want to actually build. We want to build as a PKG package. So again, as root, what we do is edit user local etc poudriere.d. We're going to call this port-list, and this file should create list the port category followed by a slash and the port name to reflect its location within the port tree. So the port tree has a sort of list, so you have like www. Inside www you have linux-widevine-cdm. So in the port list file that we created at user local etc poudriere.d port list, what we need to do is add linux/linux-widevine-cdm. And what I noticed was when I created this file and I ran it, it kept giving me an error message saying it couldn't find package linux-widevine-cd. And I was thinking, what's going on? So what I found is you need to create a new line in the port-list after the package name here. So you always want to add a new line for the last package name. So if you had 2 here, you'd put a new line here. And I said the reason for that is it seemed to, using Emacs anyway, it seemed it wasn't taking the text up to M, it was just taking it to D, if you know what I mean. So only by adding a new line would it actually count the last character. So that's just another tip to be aware of, and that's another thing that got me stumped for quite a while. So this step, basically, again, you create in the poudriere.d thing, you create a text file that you put in the name of the port that you want to build. And again, it's got to, you don't put linux-widevine-cdm, you've got to put the actual path in the port tree. So it doesn't start with /, it starts www /linux-widevine-cdm, and again make sure to add a new line after the code. And again, so if you had basically what I mean is make sure that the last thing is got a new line on it. Yeah, and if you had just one, make sure it's got a new line on it. That's just something that got me stumped for a while. Okay. So the next step after actually creating the building the ports, the next step after that is what we're going to do is actually finally start getting ready to build the ports. And what we need to do is make sure that both the jail and the ports tree are up to date. It's probably not going to be an issue the first time you build ports, but because we just created this, but it's a good idea to do it anyway. So again, this is all done as root. So to update your jail, what you do is type poudriere jail-u-j, and then the name of the jail we're going to update is Freebsd_14-0x64. And then after you've done that, and again this is as root, you update the ports tree by typing poudriere ports-u-p head in capitals. Okay, once you've done that, we can actually build this using the bulk build process, and you need to have tempfs set up, as I'll show you. I think we enabled it earlier, but I'll go through all the config and show you all the settings. So what we do is we run poudriere bulk-j freebsd_14-0x64 lowercase p head in capitals -f, and then the path to the port list file, which is /user local etc poudriere.d port-list, and this will go through and start building stuff. Okay, and what you can actually do is press Control-T. Doing the sort of build is actually, it won't sort of be constantly outputting the terminal when you run this, but you can actually run poudriere status -f or -f to view the status. You can also do stuff like set up an Nginx web server, because Poudriere has a built-in it has a web page that is updated with WebSockets, which you can view in a browser, but you have to set up Nginx as a web server, and that's just overkill for this, but I thought I'd mention it. So once you've started the bulk process of building this package, on my old MacBook Air with only 4 gig of RAM, 2011, it took about 3 or 4 minutes. So it doesn't take long to build. So just leave it a couple of minutes, and it should build the package from the port. So the next step is actually configuring our machine to use this new Poudriere repository that we've created with the package that we've built. So what we need to do is actually create a directory to hold our repository configuration files. So as root, we run mkdir-p, and the -p creates the directory structure if it doesn't exist. We run mkdir-p /user local etc pkg repos, and inside this directory we'll create the repository configuration file, and it must end in a .conf, so we'll call it poudriere.conf to reflect its purpose. So as root, vi user local, or whatever editor you want, but edit /user local etc pkg repos poudriere.conf. Okay, so what we need to do is create a file like this. So this is the poudriere.conf file, and we have like a block here, capital poudriere colon, and then sort of brackets, and then options in here. So the first one we've got is URL, and this is file colon, and then 3 forward slashes user local poudriere data packages FreeBSD underscore 14-0x64-head, and the mirror type is SRV. The signature type is pub key, and the pub key is /user local etc SSL certs poudriere.cert. And then we have enabled yes and priority 100. And what that does is the priority settings mean that you can actually set PKG to file and prioritize packages in your Poudriere config over the default FreeBSD packages. So you can say, oh yeah, I want to, if there were this package and this port isn't available to the package, but if you were building a program that was available as a package, you can specify here that your Poudriere built package should take precedence over the one in the default repositories, so that it would always install your custom built package that you built with Poudriere. And that's what the priority option does. We create that Poudriere big file so that the system knows where the repository is, basically. So this tells the system that, okay, this is the location of the Poudriere repository and the location of the certificate, and I want you to enable it and set the priority. Okay, right. So after we've done that, what we've done is we've set up Poudriere, we've built the package, we've set up a configuration file to tell the system, okay, use this Poudriere repository. What we want to do is run pkg update. So as root, we're going to run pkg update -f. But now, once you've done that, what should happen, hopefully you've got everything built, you'll be able to run pkg install linux-widevine-cdm. So that's getting the linux-widevine-cdm set up. So what we need to do after that, there's another step. So I got all that set up, and I tried to open Chromium on FreeBSD. I'm running Wayland using Wavefire on FreeBSD 14, and Chromium wouldn't open with the desktop entry in the application launcher. So basically what would happen is I'd click Chrome in the application menu and nothing happened. So what you need to do, if you're running, this is only if you're running Wayland, what you need to do is first of all check the there are different kinds of Wayland. There's stuff that's used by KDE and GNOME, and then there's stuff used by WL roots. So what you can do in the terminal, you can try these commands, see if Chrome opens. So the other thing to mention is Chromium on FreeBSD is actually called Chrome when you run the command in the terminal. So what you can do is if Chromium isn't opening for you on Wayland, using the desktop entry in the application launcher, you can try Chrome --ozone-platform-hint equals auto. If this doesn't work, and this is the option that I think works for me, this is the one that works for me in Wavefire which is like a compiz compositor. It's really good actually. It's the thing I think that's actually best supported on FreeBSD. It's the best Wayland compositor on FreeBSD, I think. So what I did was run chrome ozone platform equals Wayland. So there's a difference between the two commands. The first one is ozone platform hint equals auto. The second one is chrome ozone platform equals Wayland. So once you've checked that this actually works, and you can actually open Chromium on FreeBSD on Wayland, and again this is the one that worked for me, you want to set the option permanently. And the way we're going to do that is there's a way to use Chromium flags, but I couldn't actually get it to work. So what we're going to do is copy the Chromium browser.desktop entry, and this is the file that shows up in application launchers as an entry, you know, Chromium, Chrome, and the default location is user local / user local share applications chromium-browser.desktop. And what we're going to do is run this command here, cp / user local share applications chromium-browser.desktop to tilde / local share applications, and that's going to copy the default desktop entry for Chromium into our local share applications directory. And what that will allow us to do is edit the file and actually override the options in it to allow us to launch Chromium under Wayland by clicking the desktop entry in the application launcher. So what we're going to do, after we've copied that, we're going to run edit it with our editor, for example, VI. So VI, these steps don't need to be run as root. Just copying these desktop entries and editing them. So, for example, VI tilde / local share applications chromium-browser.desktop. And what we need to do is actually change one line. So we need to find the exact line in the desktop entry file and just add in this section here, -- platform equals Wayland space % U. So finally it should look like this. This is the default. So we've got application Chromium, and this is the line that we changed. So exec chrome space -- ozone - platform equals Wayland space % uppercase U. So that's the actual setup of getting it working. And finally, what you need to do is obviously check that Widevine DRM is working in Chromium. So what you need to do, as I showed you in the video at the beginning, is open Chromium and in the URL bar add the following URL to show the Chromium flags. So enter chrome / /flags. What you want to do is scroll to the very bottom of the page, and what you should see down here is this bit of code. CDM storage database. Start to use the CDM storage database, store data alongside the media license database. If disabled, we won't use it at all. Okay. Then the next bit here is CDM storage database. CDM storage database migration. Use the CDM storage database over the media license database for CDM storage operations. So those are the two things you should see. Now, that's all great, and I've got all this set up, and I wanted to do the demo. I wanted to record Chromium playing Widevine encrypted audio and video. That's when I hit the next snag. So I've got it all set up. I open OBS Studio, open up Chromium, get it playing DRM encrypted video. There's no audio being captured in OBS Studio. And the reason for this is OBS Studio on FreeBSD uses pulse audio to capture the system audio, like, you know, the desktop audio. So if you use Firefox, Firefox on FreeBSD uses pulse audio. So if you're using OBS Studio, you can capture the audio from Firefox because it's also using pulse audio. But Chromium on FreeBSD uses sndiod audio, and by default that doesn't allow you to record the desktop audio. So what I had to do, and this may be helpful to you, is suppose you want to actually capture something as a demo, you know, for fair use or what have you, that's actually DRM encrypted with OBS Studio. So what you need to do is install virtual OSS. So sudo pkg install virtual -- OSS. Now the next thing you need to do is enable queues load equals yes in the loader.config using CSRC. So you can do it with CSRC using sudo sysrc-f /boot loader.conf queues_load equals yes. Or you can edit the file with something like vi sudo vi /boot /loader.conf, and then they add the following code: queues_load equals yes. And this is required to get the virtual OSS set up, which we can then use with OBS Studio to capture sndiod audio from applications that don't support pulse audio, such as Chromium. After we've done that, we can actually load queues. So sudo kld load queues. Next thing we need to do is edit our rc.conf and enable virtual OSS and sndiod. It's IOD, yep, in your rc.conf. We can do that with sysrc. So sudo sysrc virtual _OSS_enabled_enable equals yes in double quotes, and sudo sysrc sndiod_enable equals yes. Or we can manually edit the etc rc/rc.conf file, and we can manually add that code in. So I'm just showing you the two ways that you can actually do it. So, you know, /etc rc.conf, we've got this set up here: virtual OSS enable and sndiod enable. Right, after we've done that, what we need to do is use virtual OSS to actually create a loopback device on dev DSP, and this is going to allow us to record desktop audio in OBS Studio. So the way we're going to do this is okay. So what we do is we switch to root, and what we do is we replace DSP 0 with the correct device. So find out the correct device that's the default audio device. So on my machine, DSP 0 would be, you know, like the speakers. DSP 1 will probably be the headphones, that sort of thing. So select the correct audio device, and what we do, as shown here, we switch to root, and then we run virtual _OSS -S -C 2-C 2-R 48000. That's the bit rate, and 16-bit, and this is like setting the buffer and -F, and then the audio device and -W vdsp.wav-l-dsp. Then in OBS Studio, what you can do is actually in the sources, click the plus button and select the OSS audio. It's the SND. You need to set I think it's the SND one, and you actually put in the custom path to dev DSP, and that's how you can actually record stuff from Chromium, playing DRM encrypted audio and video. But I'll do a separate video on that. But I was just wanting to mention it because it was something that cropped up doing the demo. You know, I basically got everything set up and I couldn't actually record the video with the audio because it was using SND, IOD and Chromium. So there's a bit of a diversion, but what I'm going to do is actually go through and show you the FreeBSD files here. So what I'm going to do is just have a recap over all the files and settings. So basically what you can do is go through that document I've shown you there, all the steps, and just simply copy these files across to get the various things we need to get set up, like poudriere and all that kind of stuff. So the first thing we're going to do is go through these directories and show you the files that are used for the config. So basically this is like the root directory of the FreeBSD file system that I've got mirrored here in these config directories. So we've got boot and then loader.conf. So let me come down here. So this is just we've got ZFS enabled, we've got audio enabled with HDA, audio, ASMC for keyboard backlighting and stuff. That's for WSP loaders for touchpad. This is my Raylink Wi-Fi setup, which I'll go into another video. But this is what we need so that poudriere and the virtual OSS audio. So for poudriere, I believe what you need is null fs underscore load. I'm not totally sure you need null fs, but I've got it there. But you need tempfs, so null fs underscore load, yes, tempfs underscore load equals yes. And for virtual OSS, so that you can actually create a loopback device that you can record with OBS Studio, we need qs underscore load equals yes. So these are the three things you want to enable in bootloader.conf. So that's the first file. Then we've got the etc directory. So we've got fs tab. So what you can see down here, if I zoom this in a bit, these are what you need to look at here under Linux. So we've got, again, this is our etc fs tab file. So we've got linprocfs at /compat/linux proc, and that's set to linprocfs read write 00. And next we've got lin/sysfs, so that /compat/linux-sys, and that's set to lin/sysfs read write 0 and 0. And when you set up the Linux service that I showed you in the steps that you've got to go through, is going to spit out a message in the terminal recommending you to set some various options in your FS tab, and it will tell you to specify these two options and another one, which I think from memory is SHM and tempfs. I found setting that didn't work and would basically stop me booting into Wavefire, so I had to remove that option. But It doesn't look like you need it because everything works anyway. So just to add these two options in your FS tab. Okay, then we've got our rc.conf. So this is etc rc.conf. So clear temp. We don't need to go through all this stuff. This is unbound. ZFS enable. Yeah. Okay, so these are the couple of things we need in our etc rc.conf. Virtual underscore OSS underscore enable equals yes, and also sndiod audio. And I think this is Chromium uses sndiod audio and not pulse audio. You don't need to have this set up for Chromium to just play, but I think it may be required for OBS to actually capture the desktop audio from Chrome. So add these two options here: virtual underscore OSS enables equals yes, and sndiod underscore enables equals yes. So sysctl.conf. I don't think there's anything in there. This is just this is my audio setup actually. So in your etc sysctl.conf file, you can set the audio device. So this is the default audio device. So on my laptop, it's got speakers and a headphone jack. So the default unit 0 is the speakers and 1 is the headphones. So that's how you set the default audio device. What you can also do is set hw.snd.default underscore auto equals 1, and this will use all new audio devices automatically. So basically that means if you plug in the headphones, it will automatically switch to headphones, and if you unplug them, it will switch back to the speakers. Okay, I think this may be needed for Chromium. It used to be in the past, I'm not sure if it still is. kern.ipc.shm underscore allow underscore removed equals 1. So that's something that may be required. Let me just check if there's anything in. Okay, so this is poudriere. So what I'm going to do is show you the /user local etc directory, and in there we've got a pkg directory, poudriere.conf and poudriere.d. I'll go through each of those separately. So first of all, we've got pkg. So in pkg we have repos, poudriere.conf. So this is the poudriere.conf file that tells the system to use our poudriere repository to install PKGs from. So we've got all this stuff I basically showed you before. So that's in /user local etc pkg repos poudriere.conf. So the next one here is we have poudriere.conf, and so this is the configuration file that I showed you earlier with the settings for zpool, zrootfs, the Freebsd host. Again, this is important. I would recommend using https://download.freebsd. So that's capital F free BSD all in capitals.org instead of the recommended FTP address, because again I found that caused a lot of problems with the firewall. I'm using pfSense and it may cause issues for you, so I recommend doing that, because otherwise you try to build something using poudriere and it won't fetch the packages, it won't fetch the ports. again, all this stuff I showed you before. So then what we have here is poudriere.d, and in here we have two things. We've got the make.conf file and the port-list file. So first of all, make.conf. So this is important. Otherwise, if you don't do this, package won't build because it hasn't accepted the license. So what would happen if you haven't got this set up and you use poudriere with the bulk command to build a package, it'll just say ignored. And you have a look in the log file and it will give you an error message about the license. So in this directory here, we have this file with, in all caps, disable underscore licenses equals yes. So that's in /user local etc poudriere.d make.conf. Disable licenses yes. And then the next thing we have here is the port-list file that we created. And as I said, you can see here I've got the separate new line after this. You can see. So you want www/linux-widevine-cdm and then a new line. Okay, so those are the two files in the poudriere.d directory. So I think that is all of the directories, and again, these are all the things in the setup guide, and you can just grab these files, put them into place and follow the guide. So next thing is the dot files to show you the modified desktop entry for Chromium. So in your home directory, you'll have a directory called .local, share applications, and as I showed you in the guide, we copied the default desktop entry for Chromium into this directory, and then we edited it. So if I have a look at this again, you see down here the setting for Wayland, for things like WL root, I think it's Western, is -- platform equals Wayland. So we've got this exec line here, and basically what we've done is add in this section here before the capital U. And again, if it's the other one, as I showed you in the guide, change the option here. Once you've done that, you'll be able to launch Chromium from your application launcher using that desktop entry, and it will basically open up properly on Chromium. So this is these steps are all out in here in this set of steps that I've done for setting up Wayland with Wavefire and stuff like that on Freebsd 14. So these are the steps that you need to go through to get this actually set up. So I can actually link to this heading directly here. So we installed Chromium, enabled Linux support, set up tempfs and nullfs, set up the fs tab. We installed the foreign-cdm package. We set up poudriere, created the SSL certificates and keys for assigning the packages. We installed poudriere, created the dist files directory, created the build environment, set the license, disable licenses. Then we created a port building list. That's the port-list file with the list of ports that we want to build. We then basically built the port that we wanted, and then finally we set the we created the sort of big file so that the system would use the poudriere repository. We ran pkg update. Again, the final step as root. Once you've done all that, you run pkg update -f. That's going to refresh everything, and then you should be able to run pkg install linux-widevine-cdm, and then finally, if you're having issues with Chromium on Wayland, by these commands in the terminal, chrome --ozone-platform-hint equals auto. If that doesn't work, try chrome --ozone-platform equals Wayland. And again, once you found out which one works, basically what you do is you run cp-/user local share applications chromium-browser.desktop to ~/.local share applications, and then you basically edit that file and put in the correct parameter after the Chrome here in the exec line. So let's get everything set up, and again you can check it by running chrome :/flags, and at the bottom of the page you should see all this CDM storage and CDM storage database migration. And again, finally, setting up virtual OSS audio for OBS. We installed virtual OSS, set up a Q's bootloader rc.conf, and then we've got a command that we can run in the terminal to create the loopback device, and then we basically can capture the audio as I showed you. So what I'll do now is just show you the demo video again, just to give you a quick refresh that it all works, and then I'll sort of wrap it up and put links to all this under the video. So let me just switch back to this, and here we go. Again, the steps we went through. Chrome flags, you see there, CDM storage database and storage database migration. And again, in a second I should switch over to channel 4. There we go. Planes, Trains and Automobiles. And this is channel4.com, which uses DRM encryption. And this is all recorded on a 2011 MacBook Air 4 gig RAM. So you won't have any problems getting this set up on your machine. And it only took a couple of minutes to actually build once the package. So here's the video. Another thing to note is, I'll mention that in a sec. Well, anyway, you get the idea. So another thing to mention with that is actually recording the audio and video, capturing the desktop audio using virtual OSS works really well. Even on that old machine. So that section was captured on a, as I said, the on the MacBook Air 2011 11-inch with 4 gig of RAM. So that was running Chromium and OBS Studio at the same time, and capturing both the screen and the audio without any issues, because quite frequently it craps out and has audio glitches. But anyway, that's following this post that I came across, and I wanted to get it to work. So I hope that helps you get it set up. Basically, what it's doing in this post here is actually recommending, just do this, and this. But what I found is you actually need to you've got to do some of this stuff in a particular order. So you've got to enable Linux before you can install the foreign-cdm or one or the other. You've got to do it in a particular order. Also, in this guide, what he's actually recommending is cloning from FreeBSD ports and then going in there and running make and sudo make install. Normally you'd use it's actually in the ports tree, so you probably wouldn't do it that way. You could just use the ports, but what you really want to do, as I say, is use poudriere to create a sort of build environment. You don't want to mix ports and packages. So I did find a couple of guides on poudriere. One was the DigitalOcean. So if you search for FreeBSD poudriere, you'll get a couple of links come up. These are some of the ones that helped me out get poudriere set up and fix a few errors I was having. So one of them was the some of the things that were actually needed. With nullfs, and I can't remember where it was, down here somewhere. Basically, there's a section down here that you needed nullfs and tempfs set up. Also, this guide here, I can go through. This has got a section on using Nginx as a web server to view the web page that's created by poudriere that's updated with WebSockets. So it will actually allow you to view this web page that will actually show you the build process of everything. So this has got all. This is a guide that you can actually use as well. And if I scroll down to the bottom, there's the section on Nginx. Yeah, so this section on Nginx. I don't know if it's got a photo. Oh yeah, okay, here. So this is like a little screen grab of the page that you can view in your browser. So it will actually show you the latest builds, the queues, the process, all that kind of stuff. So the next one, and this was one that was basically vital to solve the problem of the build being ignored. So I kept trying to build the widevine package with poudriere and it kept failing. Saying ignored ports, and the reason why was because it wasn't accepting the license. So what I found down here, setting up poudriere. This is Vermarden's blog, poudriere jails. Here we go. This is the section. Accepting all possible license is also a good idea. That's an understatement. So again, what you need to do as root is basically echo disable licenses equals yes, forward slash, arrow to append it or create it to user local etc poudriere.dmake.conf, and that's basically vital. And so that's a tip that really had me stumped and took me a while to figure out. And once I got that set up, everything basically worked. So that's it. We got Chromium on FreeBSD patched to use the foreign-cdm, and we've built the linux-widevine-cdm package using poudriere, installed it, got it all working with Chromium, and additionally we've got FreeBSD set up to actually capture the audio. Let me just check when I've got this here if I can see what the thing was. Yeah, okay. I haven't got I can't bring this up at the moment, but just a note on OBS Studio. So this is OBS Studio on FreeBSD, and once you run that, okay, so as I showed you, once we've got virtual OSS set up, what we did was we switched to root, and sort of before we launched OBS Studio. With OBS Studio, you also have to run Pulse. Before you start OBS Studio, you actually have to run Pulse Audio --start before you actually launch OBS Studio, because otherwise your mics and various things won't show up. So as a regular user, before you start OBS Studio, you run Pulse Audio --start, and then as root, what we do is run this command here that I showed you, where we replace DSP 0 with the correct audio device. So that's, again, that'd be the speakers, 1 would be the headphones. And in OBS Studio, once we'd run those 2 commands, what we do is we move the command cursor. You can see the little plus button down there. You click plus, and what you do is you select Audio Input Capture OSS, and then under you'll get like a little properties window come up, and the top one will be selected as default. What you want to do is select custom from the drop down, and it will then give you a little thing that says DSP path or DSP load path. What you want to put in is /dev/DSP. And what you'll see there is the audio input capture OSS, and what that will do is that will allow you to capture SND audio. So you can see here what we've got is desktop audio, and what that is that's basically capturing desktop audio from Pulse, from applications that use Pulse Audio. So that is when you have desktop audio enabled in your OBS settings. What it can do is it can capture audio from Firefox, because Firefox uses Pulse Audio, but Chromium uses sndiod audio. So basically, if you just have this set up and you try and capture the audio from Chromium, it's not going to work. So that's why we need to go here, create audio input capture OSS. In the next window, we selected custom from the drop down and we put /dev/DSP. And what that's going to do is that's going to select that DSP device, which we've actually created as a loopback device, so we can actually record the desktop audio from Chromium. So that's basically how I got that set up, because otherwise I wouldn't have been able to demo actually any audio coming out of the browser, which would kind of be a bit of a downer if you're doing a demo. So that's all the notes. Hopefully that will get you set up so you can watch DRM encrypted audio and video using Chromium on FreeBSD 14. So I'll put notes to all this under video, and that's all for now.